Hello, this is the Thrive with Dr. Lee Hildebrand YouTube channel. And for my topic today, I would like to address something that is becoming quite a problem in our culture, and that is sports betting. Really, it's becoming quite an epidemic. Now, what used to require a trip to the casino is now available 24/7 on people's phones, and what has really become a psychological and social cost in regard to sports betting. So, if you really look at this issue, my concerns are that this is rapidly transformed from entertainment into a real public growing health concern. And the commensurate aspect of that, if it progresses, is addiction. Major issues in regard to emotional, mental well being, especially of young men, which is the demographic most impacted by this. And if you look at the explosion of sports betting, let me tell you about a few statistics. First of all, since the legalization of sports betting has expanded across the United States through various states, really a lot of this occurred in 2018. Wagering in this capacity has skyrocketed. Americans waged over 120 billion annually on sports betting with just a few years of the legalization. And revenue from sports books is increased dramatically, with many states reporting record-breaking betting totals each year. This has become a real problem, and this mobile betting in regard to the applications that are advertised on TV, in the sports world, online, through social media, is where a majority of this betting is occurring. And the problem with this makes gambling absolutely instantaneous. At the click of a button, somebody can get hooked in regard to the sports betting. And if you look at this, the rising problem that we have here, the National Council on Problem Gambling estimated that approximately 2.5 U.S. adults meet criteria for severe gambling problems. So there really are millions at risk here in regard to this issue. In addition to that, as I mentioned earlier, the population that's most impacted by this are young adult males. And this is the fastest growing groups of gamblers. Furthermore, the aggressive marketing that you've seen in many of the sports leagues has really increased the rapidity of this and the widespread use of sports betting. Now, let's look at sports betting and ask ourselves an important question. Why is sports betting so addictive? Well, first of all, gambling itself, and sports betting is gambling, uses an unpredictable reward cycle. Similar to slot machines, the reinforcement that occurs every time you put in a bet or every time you pull down that lever is intermittent. And this is one of the most powerful behavioral reward systems. There's been research that has shown in regard to rats that if they get a food pellet for certain said behaviors, like pulling a lever, intermediately, it has stronger reinforcement than even if you give them a pellet every time, or if you give them a pellet every fourth time. Intermittent really increases the neurotransmitter dopamine in the brain. And when you get almost that surprise hit of dopamine, oh, there's the food pellet, or oh, there's the win, this increases the motivation for the person to continue betting. Now, there's also a problem here in regard to an illusion of control. People can feel like when they're sports betting that, hey, this isn't just like playing cards. I have some knowledge about my sports team, or I have some knowledge about this. And what happens is people can get overconfident in predicting outcomes. There is still so much variability. If you look at the NFL, for instance, there are games where people completely predict that one team is going to win, and then there's a surprise winner every time, week to week. So it's very difficult to have consistency in predicting on this. And what happens is the bettors will underestimate the randomness that actually occurs. Now, as I said earlier, this dopamine contingent can really lead toward what's addiction. And how that works is when you're giving reinforcement into the brain for certain behaviors and you get that hit, it's like if you imagine the woods and deer paths in the woods. A deer will run across a path and they'll find kind of a path of least resistance. And this will increase the ease in which they can get down that path, and they'll use that path time and time again. There's an aspect in which the human brain acts that way in regard to neurotransmitters, and specifically dopamine. And if you teach the brain that this is a great pathway to get the dopamine, the brain will respond accordingly and be looking for that hit of dopamine over and over again. Furthermore, when people that are betting experience losses, that can lead to attempts for them to try to quickly recover the money. They call this chasing the loss, because you're trying to get in the black. And this actually worsens the risk of addiction. So let's ask ourselves, what are some of the psychological and emotional consequences of this? Well, first of all, these addictive patterns can lead to people increasing the size of their bet and the frequency within which they bet. Furthermore, they lose control despite these negative consequences, and that's one of the aspects of addiction, is that you do the same thing over and over expecting to get a better or more favorable result, and yet you don't. Because in any gambling system, the casino itself or the sports app or whatever it is that you have it is in business to make money. They are the ultimate winners from a financial standpoint in regard to these behaviors. Now, what are the mental health effects? Well, problem gambling through research is strongly impacted and related to anxiety, depression, substance misuse, increased risk of suicide, and other detrimental things. And in regard to the social and financial harm, there are problems such as hidden debt. Many times people will start to get in a hole in regard to the gambling, and they'll hide this from loved ones. And in some cases, this absolutely can lead to financial collapse. People can rack up tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt and be way in over their heads before it's either found out or the whole system breaks down. Furthermore, this has a detrimental impact on marriages and relationships with family members. There might be family members that are loaning money to the person that's gambling, trying to help them, get out of the hole a bit to stop, and that does not help them stop. It just proliferates the behavior. Furthermore, there's career impact. People have lost their jobs from gambling situations, not only those that are participating in sports and in recent news events have been part of the betting, but also those that are the bettors themselves can have job situations, etc. And then lastly, there can be an incredible sense of shame for the bettor that just feels like, man, I wish I could stop. I just can't. And they tell themselves they're going to stop. They say, this is my last bet. This is the last time. And then they do it again. And they feel shameful and they feel isolated. And that is a big problem as well. Let me ask this. What are the warning signs of gambling addiction? Well, there are some common red flags. Oftentimes, one of those is, are you gambling more than intended? Are you spending more? Are you doing it more often than intended? Number 2, are you lying about your betting behavior? Number 3, does gambling feel like you're trying to escape some kind of stress in your life? Number 4, are you borrowing from other people that you ordinarily wouldn't? Are you selling possessions in order to have funds to gamble? That's another sign. And number 5, do you find yourself being irritable when you're trying to stop? Do you feel experiences like withdrawal? Withdrawal meaning that when you stop or when you take a break from gambling, that you feel a real pull, you feel an antsiness, you feel a pull to get back into the behavior. Now let's also talk about something that's happened in our culture, which is the social normalization of betting itself. Gambling is becoming increasingly integrated into sports, into broadcasts. There's a segment on Football Night in America that talks about some of the aspects of, you know, betting and averages and things of that nature. There are many commercials, many advertisements at stadiums about sports betting. It used to be that fantasy football, and it's still really popular and big, but it was more about getting tips for your fantasy football team. Now it's become getting tips so that you can gamble on, how many passes are completed, who scores the first touchdown, statistics, what kind of uniforms are they going to wear. You can make a bet on absolutely everything. And this has become a big problem. Furthermore, betting is sometimes marketed as part of fandom rather than indicating this could be a financial risk. So culturally, we've really moved toward normalizing this kind of sports betting. And let's be honest, do you ever hear about some of the detrimental aspects of it? Do you ever see that in any commercials? Do you ever see any commercials about people that have lost their livelihood, people that have lost their marriages, people that have lost their jobs, people that are depressed or isolated? You will not see that in these situations. So let's now talk about, how do you get help? If you have this situation, how do you get out of this? First of all, you want to try to find a therapist that has expertise specifically in addictions and gambling. And they're going to use an array of things that are going to try to help. They're going to try to help you address some of the distorted thinking that goes into this. They're going to try to assist you with some impulse control. They're going to help you get connected in with accountability with others who may have these struggles. That's one of the most important ingredients of trying to deal with these issues, including addiction, is being able to talk about, have understanding and accountability of what you're going through. So again, a combination of a experienced, seasoned psychologist, social worker, counselor, and then also some kind of a supportive group environment. And oftentimes that would be with the peers to have accountability in terms of risky behaviors. In some cases, if there's some depression that goes with this, you may be, some medication might help. It just depends on the situation. Now let's talk about prevention strategies. What are some of the ways, if you feel like, hey, I gamble from time to time. I don't think that I'm addicted to gambling, but it's not something that I want to let get out of hand. Number one, set strict money and time limits. Set boundaries. Make a decision ahead of time how much you're going to bet if you're going to place a bet. If you find yourself going over that, or you're spending more time on it than you anticipated, those could be warning signs. So this can help you try to set some boundaries. Avoid gambling when you're stressed or you're emotional, because these could be situations where you may find yourself being more impulsive. Another thing people can do is remove betting apps from your smartphone. Don't have them on the first page of your smartphone, or simply remove them. Try to strengthen healthy coping outlets. Try to strengthen things that you can do when you feel like you're a bit stressed and you want a little dopamine. What are ways you can get that dopamine without taking the unnecessary risk of financial issues that can come, or addiction issues that can come with sports betting? Seek accountability. Seek support early. Talk to people that you trust, that you feel like you can, indicate, hey, this is something that I do from time to time, but I want to make sure that it doesn't get out of hand. And honestly, my greatest advice on it would be this. Find something else better to do than sports betting. There are a lot of different ways that we can find healthy soothing and that we can get natural dopamine in our bodies from experiences that are enriching and they don't have side effects. We all need soothing. We all need to get some stimulation sometimes. But what I'd recommend is try to get as much soothing as you can. Try to get that stimulation that you're seeking with the fewest amount of side effects. And there's all kinds of hobbies. There's physical fitness and sports and music and art and games and tons of hobbies, tons of activities, tons of types of interactions with other people that can help you get some of that connection that you're looking for and get some of that stimulation that you're looking for, or challenges. So look to have healthy coping outlets. I want to close in saying this. Sports betting is a growing and unprecedented problem. And for many individuals, as I've said earlier, it's becoming more than entertainment. It's becoming a serious mental health issue. I want to just encourage you, if you're struggling with this, reach out. Seek out a competent therapist who could help with this, as well as they can help you get connected in with appropriate peer support. I'm really hoping that this has reached some people that needed to hear this today. And I want to encourage you to continue to find ways to thrive in your life, to continue to find ways to grow, to continue to find ways to level up. We're all in the journey in the process of doing that. So thanks so much for tuning in to my YouTube video today. If you liked it, please feel free to like it and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Thrive with Dr. Lee Hildebrand. Thank you so much.